For my sister's big wedding, my family invited my 11-year-old son, but not my 9-year-old daughter. We've all decided she shouldn't come, they said. I just replied, noted. We won't be attending. Then I made one quiet change. 3 weeks later, their lives were falling apart. If you'd walked into my kitchen that week, you would have thought we were preparing for a small royal coronation. Not because we're royal. We're not. My family sells that illusion the way some people sell essential oils, aggressively and with a suspicious amount of confidence. But my daughter Ruby had turned Brooke's wedding into a project, a mission, a full-time job with unpaid overtime. There was a dress photo taped inside the cabinet door at Ruby eye level. There were index cards on the counter with neat block letters. Smile. Say congratulations. Ask one question. Do not interrupt. A little checklist with boxes she'd been crossing off for weeks. And there was Ruby, in her favorite spot at the table, shoulders tense with determination, asking me for the 97th time, Mom, what do I do if someone asks me what I want to be when I grow up? I glanced up from the sink. You tell them the truth. Ruby frowned. The truth can be wrong. That depends on the person, I said. Owen, my 11-year-old, walked by and snagged a grape from the bowl. Tell them you want to be a dragon. Ruby didn't even look at him. That is not an acceptable career. It's a hobby, Owen said. And I watched him drift closer to Ruby like a little guard dog. He wasn't loud about it. He never was. He just hovered, ready to block a comment, hand her a fidget, change the subject. Like he'd been training for this in secret. Ruby tapped her pencil, then looked at me. Mom? What are the rules again? I felt that familiar squeeze in my chest. The part of me that wanted to wrap her in bubble wrap and move us to a cabin in the woods where the only social rules were, don't eat the poisonous mushrooms. I dried my hands. You say hello. You keep your hands to yourself. You don't touch the cake until they cut it. Ruby nodded seriously, as if I'd just explained a complicated legal contract. The phone rang, and I knew, before I even saw the screen, that this wasn't going to be about napkins. It was my sister, Brooke. Her voice was bright in that way people sound when they're already rehearsing what they're about to say. Hey, she chirped. Quick question. There are two kinds of quick questions. The harmless ones, like, what time are you coming? And the ones that destroy something. I put the phone to my ear and turned slightly, my back angled toward Ruby, like my body could block words. Yeah? I said. Brooke didn't waste time. So we finalized the list. I pictured my parents hovering over a spreadsheet like they were planning an invasion. And we're keeping it tight, Brooke continued, just to keep things smooth. There it was. Smooth. The word my family uses when they mean controlled. Then she said it. Owen can come, obviously, but we've all decided Ruby shouldn't. For a second, I didn't understand the sentence, like my brain refused to process it. Then heat rushed up my neck. What do you mean she shouldn't? Brooke sighed like I was being dramatic for reacting to something objectively awful. Aaron, please don't do this. I stared at the cabinet where Ruby's dress photo was taped. The edges were curling from being opened and closed 100 times. Don't do what? I asked. My voice sounded too calm, like it belonged to someone else. It's just... Brooke lowered her voice, like the walls had ears. It's a big wedding. There are a lot of important people. Nathan's family. You know. I did know. Everyone knew. My parents had been talking about Nathan's father, Richard, like he was a celebrity and a religion at the same time. His company was the bigger one, the one my parents' small business had partnered with recently. The partnership had already made their lives swell in size, like someone pumped air into them. New friends, new opportunities, new obsession with how it looks. And now my 9-year-old daughter was apparently a threat to it. I took a breath. Ruby has been preparing for this for months. Brooke made a small noise, impatient. Okay, no, you don't understand, I said, and I could hear the desperation in my own voice. I hated it. I hated needing them to have a conscience. She's been practicing what to say. She made cards. She asks me rules every day because she wants to do it right. She wants to be included. Brooke's tone hardened. Erin, she's not a baby, I pressed. She's 9. She can sit with me. I'll take her outside if she needs a break. I will handle it. You're talking like she's... Like she's what? Brooke snapped. I swallowed. Like she's embarrassing. Silence. Then Brooke exhaled, sharp and annoyed, like I'd said the quiet part out loud. We can't risk anything, she said. Not at this wedding. Not with his family there. People don't understand. You know how it can be. My fingers curled around the phone. You're not worried about her being overwhelmed. You're worried about optics. That's not fair, Brooke said immediately, which is what people say when it's completely fair. You're my sister, I said. Ruby is your niece. And this is my wedding, Brooke shot back. We all discussed it. It's better this way. End of discussion. That line hit like a door slamming. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Because what do you say to someone who just told you, calmly, that your child is a liability? I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at Ruby's cards on the counter, her neat handwriting, her effort. And then, behind me, I felt it. That shift in the air, the quiet weight of being watched. I turned. Ruby was standing in the doorway, clutching one of her index cards so tightly the paper bent. She had that expression she got when she was trying to keep her face neutral. The one that always made my throat burn because it looked like a child doing CPR on her own feelings. I didn't know how much she'd heard, but I knew she'd heard enough. Brooke was still talking. Erin, are you there? I couldn't take my eyes off Ruby. Ruby didn't ask a question. She didn't offer a solution. She didn't say, I can be good. I can be quiet. I can try harder. She just swallowed once, like she was forcing something down, and her voice came out too small. Okay, she said. That was it. No bargaining, no panic. Just acceptance, like she'd already learned that effort doesn't always earn you entry. I ended the call without saying goodbye. My hands shook, not wildly, just enough to make me furious. Ruby's eyes flicked to the dress photo inside the cabinet, then away. She walked to the counter, picked up her cards, and stacked them neatly, as if tidiness could make it hurt less. I turned back to my phone. There was a family chat. Of course there was. My family loves group chats. It gives them an audience. I didn't call. I didn't talk it out. I didn't write a paragraph explaining my daughter's humanity. I just typed, noted, we won't be attending, and hit send. For a second, nothing happened. Then my phone lit up like a slot machine. Mom. Erin, don't do this. Dad. This is one day. Brooke. You're making it into something it isn't. Someone else. Think about what you're teaching your kids. I didn't respond. Ruby quietly slid her cards into a drawer and closed it, very carefully, like the sound might shatter her. I watched her do it, and something in me went cold and clean. At the time, I didn't know it yet. None of us did. But that single decision, to keep Ruby out, would change everything. 3 weeks later, their lives were falling apart. I've been the oldest for as long as I can remember, not in the cute I helped pack lunches way, in the if something breaks it's my job to fix it way. When my parents were stressed, I became small and easy. When my sister wanted something, I learned how to give without being asked. It wasn't dramatic. It was just the shape of our family. Mom and Dad were always busy. Brooke was always loud. And I was always the one smoothing the edges. Even when I moved out, I didn't stop being the fixer. I hosted holidays, I brought dishes, I checked in, I apologized for other people's behavior like it was a hobby. Then I had Owen. And my family went insane in the way families do when a baby is easy to celebrate. Pictures. Gifts. Our little man. Mom cried at the hospital. Dad started calling himself Pop, like we were in a commercial. It was loud love, the kind that doesn't ask questions. Then Ruby came along. And Ruby was never bad. She was never difficult for the sake of it. She was just Ruby. When she was around 3 or 4, I started noticing small differences I couldn't name yet. She didn't like certain fabrics. Tags were a war crime. Loud birthday parties made her go stiff and silent, then explode later, like her body couldn't hold the noise inside. She lined things up. She repeated phrases. She watched people like she was studying them for a test she didn't know the subject of. At first, everyone said the same things. She's sensitive. She'll grow out of it. You're overthinking. Then there was a day at a crowded indoor play place when Ruby clapped her hands over her ears and slid under a table shaking. I was crouched beside her whispering, "Breathe with me," while other parents stared like my child was misbehaving. And Mom said, out loud, "Erin, she's being dramatic." That was one of the first times I felt that sharp little snap inside me. The moment I realized my family didn't understand the difference between overwhelmed and disobedient. It took time to get answers, years of collecting little puzzle pieces, teachers hinting, pediatricians waving it off, me walking out of appointments with pamphlets about strong-willed children, like that explained why my daughter cried when someone moved her cup. Then, a few years ago, a specialist finally said the word. Autistic. The diagnosis was a weird mix of grief and relief. Grief because the world is not kind to kids who don't blend in. Relief because I wasn't imagining it, and now I could actually help her instead of guessing in the dark. I made a promise to myself that day, sitting in my car with my hands on the steering wheel, trying not to cry. Ruby would never be treated like a problem to hide. Not by strangers. And definitely not by my own family. I thought that promise would be easy, because who looks at a child and decides she's too inconvenient to love? Turns out, plenty of people. Especially the ones who love you conditionally. The first holiday after Ruby's diagnosis, she said something honest in the way she always did. Literal. Direct. Not rude, just unfiltered truth. An aunt laughed too loudly. Someone said, "Oh wow, she's such a little weirdo," like it was cute. Then Mom leaned into my ear and whispered, "You have to stop her from doing that." Not, "Is she okay?" Not, "How can we help?" Just, "Make her more palatable." I tried the polite route. For years, I explained autism in simple terms. I offered strategies. I asked for patience. I reminded them she wasn't being difficult. She was processing differently. They nodded. They smiled. They did nothing different. Ruby, meanwhile, started doing what a lot of kids like her do. Masking. She watched people closely. She copied tone. She practiced phrases under her breath like homework. She learned when to laugh even if the joke didn't make sense. She learned how long to make eye contact so people wouldn't say she was rude. She came home from school drained, holding herself together all day like she was carrying a heavy box with no handles. Then she'd collapse into silence on the couch, cheeks pale, eyes unfocused. Owen understood before anyone else did. At family gatherings, he'd drift toward Ruby like gravity. He'd hand her something to fidget with. He'd steer her away from loud kids. He'd jump in with a joke if an adult started staring. He never made it dramatic. He just protected her. My parents, on the other hand, started having important events. A dinner, a work thing, a party where they wanted to impress someone. At one of those gatherings, Ruby said something a little too literal to someone in a fancy suit. I watched the person blink, smile too tightly, and then turn away. Later, Mom pulled me aside and said, "This is exactly what I mean." "Exactly what?" I asked. Mom's eyes flicked toward the room like it was a stage. "We can't have that." That was when she used the word for the first time. "Embarrassing." Ruby didn't hear that specific word that night, but she didn't need to. She felt the shift. She always did. She asked me in the car on the way home, very quietly, "Am I hard to bring places?" I nearly swerved off the road. I told her no. I told her she was not too much. I told her the world was too small and we were going to find bigger spaces. But the question stayed with me, because she didn't ask it like a dramatic child. She asked it like someone gathering data. Then Brooke got engaged. And suddenly the family's obsession with important people hit a new level. Brooke started saying Nathan's family like a title. Mom started talking about Richard, Nathan's dad, like he was a prize. Dad was suddenly wearing nicer clothes. Everyone was acting like this wedding was the doorway to a life they'd always deserved. And the thing is, it kind of was. My parents had always run a small business. Nothing glamorous. It paid the bills. It kept them proud. But once Brooke started dating Nathan, everything changed. His father ran the bigger company they partnered with, and my parents' world expanded fast. New contacts, bigger numbers, a taste of money they'd never had. The way they talked, you could almost hear the greed shining through the polite words. Now they were obsessed with keeping everything perfect, because this wedding wasn't just family. It was the future they thought they were finally entitled to. Ruby heard wedding and latched onto it like it was a lighthouse. Her first big formal event. A place with rules, clear expectations, a chance to be included properly. She asked me questions every day, not to be annoying, but because she wanted to do it right. And the hardest part was realizing she wasn't excited like a kid. She was excited like someone trying to earn a seat at a table she'd been hovering outside of her whole life. 3 weeks later, the wedding was over. We didn't go. That part didn't kill anyone. Shocking, I know. My phone still had the old messages sitting there, unread, like a pile of garbage someone expected me to sort. Life at home settled into a quieter rhythm. Owen went back to school like normal. Ruby stopped asking about weddings entirely, like the topic had been quietly buried in the backyard. Easter came next. I've always hosted. It's just what I do. The fixer, remember? But this year, I did something different. I sent the Easter message to the usual family circle. Aunts, cousins, people who show up with potato salad and opinions. I did not include Mom, Dad, or Brooke. No announcement, no warning, no dramatic, "after everything you've done." Just a message with a time and a place, like always. Owen watched me hit send and didn't say anything. He just nodded once, like he understood the assignment. Ruby sat at the table, drawing quietly, pretending not to listen. But her shoulders were less tense than usual, like the idea of not performing was a relief. The group chat responded normally at first. "Do you need deviled eggs? I can bring dessert. What time should we come?" Then the interruption came. "Mom, wait. Are we not invited?" The tone was sharp and staged, like she'd stepped onto a stage and adjusted her microphone. Brooke followed immediately. "So first you don't attend my wedding, and now you're cutting us out of Easter? What is wrong with you?" Dad jumped in too, because of course he did. "This is cruel, Aaron. You're punishing everyone." They weren't asking quietly. They weren't texting privately. They wanted witnesses. They wanted the whole family to see me being difficult. Because that's how they win. They make you feel shame under fluorescent lighting. I stared at the screen, that old reflex stirring in me. The one that wants to smooth it over, soften the edges, fix it. Then Ruby looked up from her drawing. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She was just watching my face like she was waiting to learn what truth costs. And something in me went still. I typed one message. Just one. No speech, no diagnosis lesson, no begging for empathy. I didn't attend Brooke's wedding because you excluded Ruby for being autistic and said you couldn't risk embarrassment in front of Nathan's family. So no, you're not invited to Easter. We're done. I hit send. The chat went weirdly quiet. No jokes, no emojis, no immediate backlash. Just that awful pause where you can feel people reading. Then someone typed, "Is that true?" I didn't answer. Because if I answered that in the group chat, it would turn into a debate. And I wasn't putting my 9-year-old's dignity up for family voting like it was a casserole contest. A few minutes passed. Then my phone rang. Unknown number at first. Then it stopped. Then it rang again. This time it came through with a name. Nathan. I stared at it for a beat, thumb hovering, brain doing that quick inventory of worst-case scenarios. Then I picked up. "Hi," I said. There was a pause on the other end. Not dramatic, not angry, just careful. Like he was walking across glass. "Aaron," he said quietly. "I'm sorry to call. I saw what you wrote." "Okay." Another pause. I could hear breathing, like he was trying to decide how to ask without sounding like the villain. "Is it true?" he asked. "Did they really tell you Ruby couldn't come because they didn't want to risk embarrassment?" My throat tightened. I kept my voice level anyway. "Yes," I said. "That's what they said." "And Ruby," he added, softer. "She's 9. "Yes." He didn't say, "That's insane," even though I could tell he wanted to. He didn't try to smooth it over. He didn't defend Brooke. He just went quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I didn't know." "I know," I replied. Another pause. "Thank you for telling me the truth," he said finally. Then he hung up. The next morning, the pounding started. Not a polite knock. Not a, "Hey, can we talk?" Pounding. Owen appeared in the hallway instantly, like he'd been waiting for it. Ruby was behind him, quiet and pale, gripping the edge of her shirt. I opened the door and there was Brooke. Her eyes were red, but not with sadness, with rage. Her hair was shoved back like she'd done it in a hurry. Her whole body looked wired, vibrating. She didn't say hello. She didn't look at Ruby. She launched straight at me like a missile. "What did you tell him?" she hissed. "Who?" I asked. "Nathan, what did you tell my husband?" "Nothing." I kept my voice calm. "He called me. I just told him the truth." Brooke's laugh was sharp and ugly. "Of course he did. And of course you couldn't wait." "I didn't call him," I said. "He asked if it was true. I said yes." Brooke stepped closer. "He left." I didn't move. "Left where?" Brooke's face twisted. "I don't know. Somewhere. He said he needed space. He said he needed to think." Her voice cracked on the last word like it physically offended her. "He wouldn't even sleep at home." Owen's jaw clenched. Ruby went very still. Brooke noticed them then, really noticed them. And instead of lowering her voice, she got louder. "Good," she snapped, eyes flicking to Ruby like Ruby was an object on a counter. "They should hear this. They should see what you've done." I felt something cold slide into place inside me. Brooke, leave. She jabbed a finger toward my chest. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look like a monster. You excluded your niece, I said, voice flat. Brooke shook her head fast, like she could shake reality loose. We were protecting the wedding. No, I said. You were protecting your image. Brooke surged forward into my space, and for a second I thought she was going to shove past me into my house. Her hand grabbed my arm hard, nails digging in. I yanked back, and Owen stepped forward without thinking. Don't touch my mom, he said. Brooke's eyes flashed. Stay out of it. Ruby made a small sound, barely a sound at all, and Brooke rounded on her like that sound was an insult. This is exactly why, she spat, and then caught herself too late. I saw Ruby's face change, that familiar shutdown, that awful retreat, and something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clean. Get out, I said. Brooke's chest heaved. Her voice rose, wild and shaking, filling my doorway while my kids watched. You did this to me! And that was the moment I understood this wasn't just a family fight anymore. It was a safety moment, and I wasn't going to lose it. Easter still happened at my house. Not because I was trying to prove a point, because I refused to let Brooke's tantrums steal another day from my kids. I kept the curtains open. I kept the door locked. I let Owen help hide eggs in the yard. I let Ruby decide where she wanted to sit, and nobody looked at her like she was a problem to manage. It was quieter than it had ever been. No walking on eggshells. No translating passive-aggressive comments. No, just ignore it whispered in the kitchen. For one day, it felt like peace might actually hold. And I let myself believe, briefly, that the blow-up was the end of it. Then, a few days later, there was a knock at my door. Not pounding, knocking, soft, polite. When I opened it, both my parents were standing there with the kind of smiles people wear when they're trying to sell you something. Mom held a container like it was a peace offering. Dad's hands were in his pockets, shoulders lifted like he was trying to look harmless. Hi, Aaron, Mom said, voice syrupy. Can we talk? I didn't step aside. About what? Mom's smile twitched. We hate how things have been. Dad nodded quickly. This has gotten out of hand. Mom continued. We want to make it right. We didn't realize how it sounded. The words were sweet, but the urgency underneath them was sharp enough to cut. I waited. Mom's eyes flicked past me, toward the living room, like she was checking if Ruby was visible. There's concern, she said carefully. About the partnership. There it was. The real wound. Dad cleared his throat. They're reconsidering some things. Mom rushed in. Nothing is final yet. It's just tense. Nathan has been distant. It's all very complicated. But we think there's a way to fix it. I crossed my arms. Let me guess. That way involves me doing emotional labor for free. Mom laughed lightly, like I'd made a joke and not a statement of fact. We're hosting a family dinner, she said. Everyone will be there. Brooke and Nathan's parents, Richard and Victoria. Dad added, They want to talk. Clear the air. Mom's smile widened. We want you there. And Owen. And Ruby. My stomach tightened. Ruby? Mom nodded quickly, like she was very proud of herself. Yes, Ruby will be included. We'll do whatever adjustments she needs. Quiet space, safe foods, breaks. Whatever makes her comfortable. It sounded rehearsed, like they'd written it down. Dad stepped forward slightly. This is a chance, Aaron, for healing. For a second, I almost laughed. They hadn't come to apologize. They'd come because their shiny new future was wobbling and they needed me to hold it steady. Mom leaned in, lowering her voice like she was sharing something intimate. Please, Just come. If they see you're willing, if Ruby is there, it will show we're a family, that we can handle this." I stared at them, and I could feel the old reflex in my bones. The fixer, the smoother, the one who makes everyone comfortable. Then I thought about Ruby's face in the kitchen, the way she'd said okay, like she'd been training for rejection her whole life. I didn't say yes at the door. I said, "I'll think about it." Mom's relief was immediate. Too quick. Like she'd been sure I'd fold. After they left, I sat at my table with Owen and Ruby. Owen didn't look thrilled. "It's a trap," he said bluntly. Ruby stared at her hands. "If we go, will they want me there?" That question hurt more than any screaming. "They said you can come," I answered carefully. Ruby's eyes lifted, hopeful in that careful way that always made me want to cry. Not excited, not joyful, hopeful like she was stepping onto thin ice. I didn't agree because I trusted my parents. I agreed because Ruby deserved one moment where family didn't mean enduring. So we went. Mom and Dad's house looked like it had been staged for a magazine spread called People Who Are Definitely Not Panicking. Too clean, too bright, too many smiles. Brooke was there, wearing her new wife glow like armor. Nathan stood off to the side, quiet and tight in the jaw. Richard and Victoria sat at the table like they were watching a documentary. Polite. Still. Taking notes without a notebook. Mom made a big show of accommodations. Quiet room, soft lighting. "Ruby's safe foods." She said it loudly, like she wanted applause for basic decency. Ruby nodded and kept her eyes on her plate. Dinner started fine. Almost fine. The kind of fine that makes you think, maybe this was just a nightmare. Then Mom stood up with her glass. Of course she did. "I'm just so glad we're all together," she said, voice syrupy. "And I want to clear something up. People don't understand autism. It can be difficult. Sometimes Ruby says things and people can be offended, and we just didn't want that to happen at the wedding. But we love her in our own way. This doesn't mean we don't love a child." Ruby's shoulders pulled inward. Her gaze dropped like she was trying to make herself smaller in real time. And my parents looked pleased with themselves, like they'd just delivered a TED Talk called How to Exclude Someone Kindly. Richard didn't raise his voice. He didn't even change his expression much. He just leaned forward slightly and asked one question, calm as a knife. "Do you think Ruby is lesser because she's autistic?" The room froze. Mom's smile stayed on her face for half a second too long, then cracked. Dad stared at his plate like the answer might be printed on it. Brooke's eyes flicked to Nathan, desperate. And Ruby stayed looking down. Mom gave a thin laugh. "No, of course not. It's just, people don't understand. We were trying to make it easier." Richard nodded once, like he'd heard enough. Then he said quietly, "I'm autistic." Dead silence. Brooke went rigid. Dad blinked like his brain stalled. Mom's mouth opened and didn't find a sound. Richard didn't linger on it, no dramatic build-up, just fact. "My whole life," he continued, "people looked at me the way you just looked at her. Like I was a risk. Like I needed managing. That's why I stopped telling people. I learned to mask. I learned to blend. And I got very good at it." Ruby's head lifted. Slowly. Like she couldn't help it. Because the person everyone in that room treated like royalty had just said the word autistic, like it wasn't shameful at all. Richard turned to Ruby. His voice softened, but it didn't turn sugary. "Ruby," he said, "you are not lesser. You're not broken. You don't have to shrink to make people comfortable. You can do anything you want. Anything. And when people try to make you smaller, that tells you something about them, not about you." Ruby stared at him, wide-eyed. Then her chin lifted a fraction more, like she was testing the shape of confidence. Richard leaned back, looked at my parents, and his tone went flat again. "And as for the partnership," he said, "it's not going to work." Mom's face drained. "Please." Richard stood. Victoria stood with him. Nathan stood too, not looking at Brooke. Richard didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He didn't give them the dignity of a debate. He just left. Nathan followed. The front door closed, and the silence that remained felt heavier than any shouting. My parents sat there, stunned, like they'd just watched their future walk out on its own legs. Ruby didn't look down anymore. I reached for her hand. Owen was already at her side, and I did what I should have done a long time ago. I stood up, took my kids, and walked out without saying a word. 6 months later. Our house is quiet in the best way. No dread, no group chat drama, no family meeting ambushes disguised as concern. Owen laughs like he's not on duty anymore. Ruby doesn't flinch when the doorbell rings. She's got friends now. Real ones. The kind who don't treat her like a problem to solve. She's still Ruby, still rule-loving, still blunt sometimes, but she says what she thinks without staring at my face afterward like she's waiting to be punished for existing. And me? I'm still no contact. The easiest boundary I've ever kept once I stopped confusing guilt with love. The fallout came in pieces, through other people, like gossip delivered with a side of shock. Brooke's marriage didn't survive the "we excluded your niece because she might embarrass us" conversation. Nathan moved out, then made it official. Divorced. Richard didn't just pause the partnership. He ended it. Clean. Final. The kind of cut you don't stitch back together. My parents tried to scramble. They begged. They blamed me. They tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. But once the bigger company pulled out, everyone else suddenly remembered they had concerns too. Contracts dried up, accounts closed, calls stopped getting returned. The small business they were so proud of, gone. The house they loved showing off, sold. Last I heard, they were renting a place across town and telling anyone who would listen that I destroyed the family. Which is funny, because I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped covering it up. Sometimes I think about that day in my kitchen, Ruby holding her little cards, saying okay, like she'd already decided she wasn't worth the effort. Then I think about her now, sitting on the couch with friends texting her. And I remember what peace feels like when you stop begging to be treated like family. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. At Christmas, my 8-year-old daughter grabbed my hand and whispered, "I am scared of Grandma." I looked at my mom. She was smiling. But then I saw this in her hand and froze. I didn't shout. I took action. 10 minutes later, police were at the door. 10 minutes before everything blew up, I was telling myself it was fine. Not perfect. Not peaceful. Just fine. 10 minutes before everything blew up, I was telling myself it was fine. Not perfect. Not peaceful. Just fine. The house was full. My mom was moving through the kitchen like she owned it. Derek, my ex-husband, was being charming to someone. Jade, my best friend, was near the snacks giving me eyes like, "Do not make me socialize with Derek." And Lucy, my 8-year-old daughter, was glued to my side, which should have been the first red flag. I had made it this far without crying into the stuffing. I was counting that as a win. Then Lucy tugged my hand. I leaned down. "What is it, baby?" She looked up at me, serious. Whispered, "I'm scared of Grandma." My brain did a full stop. Not confused, not unsure. She said it like she meant it. No drama, no tears, just fact. I blinked. "Scared?" She nodded. I turned toward the kitchen. My mom was standing by the counter smiling. Not at anyone. Just smiling. Like the kind you do when you're alone but pretending not to be. She was humming, something tuneless and too cheerful. Her hands moved over a small dessert plate, spreading something. Nothing looked wrong, except there was a jar in her hand, and the second I saw it, something in my chest tightened. It looked like the nut-free one, the kind I buy religiously. Same shape, same brand, same familiar blue. But then I saw the lid. It was the wrong color. My stomach dropped. I took a few steps closer, not enough to cause alarm, just enough to get a better view. That's when I saw the label. Same font, same layout, but different. I knew instantly this wasn't the nut-free jar. It was the real one, the one that has a warning label for tree nuts printed in small, clean letters on the back, the one I never allow in the house, the one I told everyone, repeatedly, was banned, the one that could send Lucy into anaphylaxis, and she was spreading it onto a cookie she placed carefully on a pink unicorn plate. Lucy's plate? I went still. My mind flipped through explanations like flashcards. She brought the wrong jar? No. I watched her hold up the nut-free one when she arrived. It was sealed, labeled. This was a different jar. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she didn't realize she'd switched them. Except, I never buy the regular kind. There's no other jar in the house. There never has been. So where did this one come from? And why was she smiling? I turned, walked straight to my purse, unzipped the side pocket. Empty. My fingers moved faster. Other compartments. Lining. Inside the flap. Gone. Lucy's EpiPen. Always in the same place. Always. Not there. I didn't react. I couldn't. My hands were numb. I looked down at Lucy. Let's go to my room for a minute, okay? She nodded. No questions. Just trust. We walked down the hall. I locked the door behind us, opened the dresser, pulled out the backup EpiPen, sat down, tried to breathe. What are you looking for? Lucy asked. Your EpiPen. She tilted her head. Oh, Grandma took it. I looked at her. What? I saw her. She took it from your bag. She put it in hers. It wasn't a mistake. It was never a mistake. I picked up my phone. Called. My daughter has a life-threatening nut allergy. Someone in my home brought a nut product and removed her EpiPen from my bag. I have a backup. But I believe this was done intentionally. 10 minutes later, the knock came. And I was still sitting there, holding my daughter in one arm, her EpiPen in the other, waiting to find out if this was really happening, or if it had already happened, and I was just the last one to see it. I grew up in a house where keeping the peace meant shutting up. If Mom was stressed, you didn't ask questions. If my brother Trevor forgot to clean up after himself, again, you cleaned up for him. If something felt unfair, you smiled through it. That's just how things were. Trevor and I were close in age, but the rules never seemed to apply equally. He could leave a mess, roll his eyes at Mom, ignore chores, and somehow still be the one getting praised for trying his best. Meanwhile, I was the one who knew where the spare batteries were, who figured out how to keep the washing machine from flooding the hallway. Mom used to call me her little second in command. It sounded sweet when I was 6. By 16, it felt like a job I never applied for. Our dad left when I was around 10. Divorce. Quiet, messy, final. He called once in a while, sent birthday cards with money inside. But he was gone. That left me, Trevor, and Mom, which really meant it was just me and Mom holding everything up, and Trevor floating somewhere in his own orbit. Trevor still floats. He's not living with Mom anymore, but he's not exactly independent either. Between jobs, as he calls it. Except between implies there was something before and something coming next. I'm not convinced of either. Anyway, I met Derek when I was in my mid-20s. He was charming in that practiced way some men are. The kind that makes you feel lucky just to be noticed. He was successful, confident, articulate. Everyone liked him, especially Mom. She adored him, said he was the kind of man who knew how to lead. Said I was lucky, and for a while, I believed her. We got married. We had Lucy. And for a while, it worked. When Derek's company expanded, he offered my mom a full-time job, something administrative. It suited her, and she loved telling people she worked for the family. It made her feel important. She had a desk, an email signature, a boss she admired. Then it stopped working. I won't rehash it, not in detail. I'll just say, I left him because he cheated, and that was enough. When I told Mom, she didn't gasp or get angry or ask if I was okay. She sighed. So he cheated, she said. It happens. That's just how men are. I remember staring at her, waiting for the part where she would follow up with something like, but it's still wrong, or I'm here for you. Instead, she said, you should have stayed. You have a child. I said, I'm not staying in a broken marriage so you can keep your job. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. Derek didn't fire her. Of course he didn't. He promoted her, gave her more responsibility, more money, gave her reasons to speak about him with reverence, even after everything. She took those reasons and ran with them. He's professional, organized, generous. He still supports me, even after what you did. What I did? Trevor, for the record, was neutral, mostly because he didn't want to rock any boats that might offer him a job. I heard rumors. Derek had floated the idea of bringing him into the company. Nothing concrete. Just enough to make Trevor interested. And quiet. Then came the custody process. Derek wanted 50%, maybe more. He said he wanted to be involved. Said Lucy deserved both parents. He had the money, the house, the clean shirts and fresh haircut and calm voice. I had the schedule, the scraped knees, the late-night stories, the fear that somehow none of that would matter. I tried to fight fair. I really did. But when your own mother is suggesting maybe Lucy would be better off with him, it's hard to feel like anyone is on your side. She said things like, you're always so reactive, and he offers stability. She meant, you're messy. You're emotional. You're not doing it right. I started to feel like I was shrinking, like I was vanishing from my own narrative. Christmas was supposed to be a break. I wanted quiet. Just Lucy, Jade, Mom, maybe a couple close friends. Nothing big, no pressure. But Mom pushed. You have to invite Derek, she said. Don't punish Lucy. It's Christmas. And when I hesitated, she added, this isn't about you. It's about family. So I gave in, like I always do. I invited him, set the table, hung the lights. Told myself I could get through one day. I did not expect what happened next. Now I'm sitting in my bedroom. The door is locked. Lucy is beside me, breathing steady. The backup EpiPen is in my hand. And I keep replaying it. The jar, the smile, the plate, the words Lucy whispered. I don't know what this was. I don't know why she did it. I don't know what she was thinking. All I know is it wasn't a mistake. And I don't feel safe. Not even in my own home. I was still holding the backup EpiPen when I heard the knock at the front door. Lucy was curled next to me on the bed, small and quiet, like none of this had happened. Like she hadn't just looked me in the eye and said Grandma took the EpiPen. Like she hadn't whispered that she was scared. 10 minutes earlier, I'd called the police. Now I was waiting. The kind of waiting where your brain fills in too many blanks. What if they don't believe me? What if I overreacted? What if this was all some giant misunderstanding and I just nuked Christmas over a jar? What if it wasn't? Then I heard it. The front door opening. Voices. A man. Polite but firm. Then her voice. My mother. All pleasant and confused. Officers? Oh, is something wrong? Lucy shifted. I held her tighter. I couldn't hear what the police said back, but I could picture the look on her face. The wide-eyed innocence. The what could I possibly have done tilt of the head. She could win Oscars if she ever auditioned for something other than Manipulative Mother of the Year. Footsteps. Closer. Down the hallway. Then a knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Just steady. Police. Are you all right in there? I swallowed. I'm with my daughter. We're okay. Would you be willing to open the door? Just want to check in, make sure everything's all right. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to open it, because once I did, this wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real. I opened the door. 2 officers, one male, one female. The woman looked like someone who'd seen every kind of ugly, but still kept her voice calm anyway. I stepped into the hallway just enough so Lucy couldn't hear. My daughter has a severe nut allergy, I said. My voice sounded flatter than I expected. My mom brought a jar she said was nut-free, but I saw her using a different one, a real one, the kind we don't allow in the house, and she was putting it on a cookie, on Lucy's plate. I felt my hands tighten around the EpiPen. And the pen I always keep in my purse? It was missing. I found the backup, but Lucy said she saw her take it. The officer nodded. She didn't look surprised. That felt worse. Okay, she said. Would you prefer to stay in the room with your daughter while we speak to everyone else? I nodded. She left. The door clicked shut. I sat back down, listened. My mother, already on stage. This is absurd. I didn't do anything. She's just dramatic. She loves that word. Dramatic. It's her favorite way to say, you can't trust her. Another voice, calmer. Probably the officer. Then more movement. A knock. The same woman officer stepped in. We're going to check the kitchen and speak with your mother. Are you comfortable with us looking through her bag? Yes, I said. No hesitation. She left again. More movement. A raised voice. Not mine. This is harassment. What are you even looking for? That jar was just something I brought. You can't go rifling through people's things just because she has a tantrum. Tantrum. I waited. Then, another knock. The officer came in, this time holding something in her hand. Lucy's EpiPen. We found it in her purse, she said. I stared. The jar, she continued, is not the same one she presented earlier. It contains peanuts. It's clearly labeled. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Would you like to give a full statement now, or wait until later? Either is fine. Now, I said. She nodded and left. More time passed. I didn't check the clock. Everything had gone sort of floaty, like my body was underwater, but no one else noticed. Then I heard it. My mother's voice again. Angrier now. You can't be serious. You're really taking me to a station? Over a cookie? Then the officer. Ma'am, you're not under arrest, but we do need to speak with you formally. Then the door. Then silence. I sat there, still holding the pen. Jade appeared in the doorway. Didn't say anything at first. Can I come in? I nodded. She sat on the floor next to the bed, looked at Lucy, then at me. So, she said finally. Quiet evening, huh? I laughed. It came out sharp, like a gasp. But it was real. I knew she didn't like me, I said. Didn't know she wanted to kill my child. Jade didn't flinch. She just reached over and put a hand over mine, the one still holding the pen. And that's where I stayed, sitting next to my best friend, holding the one thing that stood between my daughter and whatever the hell that just was, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal person again. As soon as the officers left, I stood up, still holding Lucy's EpiPen like it was the only solid thing in the world. Jade stood with me. I walked out into the hallway and said flatly, Christmas is over. Please go. No one argued. Derek didn't say a word, just picked up his coat and walked out like he was leaving a bad dinner party. A couple of guests offered awkward hugs I didn't return. Someone asked if I needed anything. I shook my head. There was nothing anyone could give me that I wanted. Jade didn't leave. She didn't ask if she should stay. She just started clearing plates like she had always lived here. Lucy fell asleep curled up on my bed. I tucked her in, kissed her head, and sat beside her until her breathing evened out. By the time I made it back to the kitchen, Jade had already washed the dishes I couldn't look at. She handed me a mug of tea and didn't say a word. That was what I needed. We sat in silence for a while. Not the tense kind. The kind that fills in naturally when everything else has been said. I keep thinking, I said finally. If I hadn't walked into the kitchen right then... Jade didn't answer. If she'd eaten it. If I hadn't noticed the label. If Lucy hadn't said anything. Still nothing. Then, you did notice. I nodded. Took a sip. I didn't say what I was really thinking. That I saw it, yes. But I still waited. Still questioned it. Still stood there frozen, telling myself it wasn't what I thought. The next morning, the phone rang. Unknown number. But I knew. I answered it. Hello? My mother didn't waste time. How could you do this to me? No greeting. No pretense. You called the police on your own mother. On Christmas. Over a dessert. Her voice was furious. Controlled. Like she'd rehearsed it all night while pacing a holding room. Good morning, I said flatly. Don't be flippant, Hannah. You humiliated me. Do you even understand what you've done? I said nothing. This could ruin me. I could lose my job. Do you care about that at all? Do you even care what this does to the family? Mom, I said, you brought a peanut product into a nut-free house. You put it on Lucy's plate. You stole her EpiPen. Oh, for God's sake, she snapped. You really think I would ever put her in danger? She wasn't going to eat it. Not really. I blinked. What do you mean, not really? Derek had an EpiPen. He was ready. He was going to step in the second anything happened. She would have been fine. My mouth went dry. You planned that? You don't understand what it's like to be a single mother, she said, shifting into that disappointed tone I knew too well. I just wanted to help. I wanted people to see how much pressure you're under. So you staged a medical emergency. It wouldn't have gone that far, she snapped. Derek was going to fix it. All I wanted was for people to see that maybe you're not managing. And you're not. You're hanging on by a thread. I stared at the counter. At Jade, who was now frozen with a coffee mug halfway to her lips. You think that helps me? I think you need help, she said. Real help. And if you won't ask for it, someone else needs to show people the truth. I couldn't respond. There wasn't a sentence in the English language big enough to hold the amount of disbelief I was feeling. Then she added, quieter. He was going to make sure it didn't get serious. We weren't trying to hurt her. Just prove a point. There it was. Derek. He knew? She hesitated. Just for a second. It was his idea, she said. I just followed through. She must have realized what she'd said, because she hung up right after that. I sat there staring at my phone. Jade blinked once, then reached over and poured more coffee into my cup like we were just talking about groceries. So, she said, your mom's a sociopath. I said, apparently in collaboration with my ex-husband. A fun twist. We sat there in silence for a while. The kitchen smelled like old sugar and new coffee. There were still dishes in the sink. The unicorn plate was gone. I didn't want to ask where it ended up. What do I do now? I asked. Jade shrugged. Sue? I let out something between a laugh and a breath. I meant about Lucy. About everything. You tell the truth, she said. You already did the hard part. You stopped it. You believed yourself. That counts. The words hit something in me. I didn't say thank you. I didn't need to. 2 days later, my lawyer called. You might want to sit down for this, she said. Should I be scared or relieved? Both. She explained that they'd received discovery materials from the custody proceedings. Emails, screenshots, attachments, between my mother and Derek. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't vague. They talked about how they were going to highlight your instability and demonstrate that Lucy needs a more structured environment. They joked about me freaking out on cue. They referenced the jar, the EpiPen. Derek even confirmed in one message that he would have one ready to intervene safely. And then the part that made my stomach turn. My mother asking about the promotion, and Derek replying, already done. followed by another message. When can we bring Trevor in for onboarding? Trevor, my brother. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, phone still against my ear, the words spinning around in my head like laundry in a broken washer. They didn't want Lucy to die. They just wanted me to look like someone who couldn't protect her. And they were willing to risk everything to prove it. 6 months later, I still check the label on everything twice. Maybe that won't ever change. And maybe it shouldn't. My mother took a plea deal. Child endangerment. Tampering with medical equipment. 2 years probation. Counseling. Court order. No unsupervised contact with Lucy for 5 years. Fine by me. I didn't go to the hearing. I didn't need to. I already heard everything I needed the day she told me she just wanted to help. Derek fired her the second the police got involved. Said he felt betrayed. Which is hilarious, considering. My brother never got the job. Derek ghosted him right after the arrest. He texted me once. Loyalty, family, blah blah blah. I blocked him. Haven't looked back. So yes, I cut them all off. My mother. My brother. Gone. No calls. No apologies. No reconnections. Derek didn't walk away clean either. The emails, the texts, the EpiPen plan, all of it showed up in family court. But the DA saw more. He got hit with conspiracy to endanger a child. He pled out. Probation, permanent record. No jail, but no spin either. His name went public. His business folded within weeks. Clients pulled out. Partners resigned. Quietly. Respectfully. Like they weren't running. He issued a bland statement. Something about stepping away to focus on family. No one bought it. The judge didn't need convincing. Full legal and physical custody to me. Supervised visitation only. No overnights. Parenting classes. Therapy. Psychological eval. Maybe, if he completes all of that and behaves perfectly, he can petition for more. But even he knows it won't happen. Now, it's quiet. Lucy is doing better. She's in therapy. She's talking more. Drawing more. Sleeping through the night. She hasn't asked for her dad. Jade still shows up with wine and zero patience for my self-doubt. She doesn't tiptoe around the story, doesn't handle me like I'm a porcelain figurine someone knocked off a shelf. We laugh sometimes. It doesn't feel like betrayal anymore. I still check my purse twice before leaving the house. Still scan dessert tables like I'm about to disarm a cake. That's fine. That's part of it. Because Lucy is safe. Because I trust myself. It's not the life I imagined, but it's mine. And it's quiet. And it's safe. And after everything we survived, it's more than enough. I thought losing Derek was the worst thing. Then I thought trusting my mother was the worst thing. But the real worst thing would have been not trusting myself. And now, I do. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe.